We love to hear stories of how God works in big, miraculous ways, but He's also moving in everyday moments. My name is Terry Dorsett, and I serve as the Executive Director of the BC&E. In this video, I want to share how a simple, ordinary experience revealed a powerful spiritual truth, and how we can start seeing God's hand in our daily lives. So I grew up in a city in the Midwest and always lived in a city all of my life. And then when I was a young adult, the Lord called us to this little tiny village to do mission work with the North American Mission Board. And so we moved to this little village with 800 people, and we were living in this little village with one paved street, and it was a real culture shock. And so it's been my custom for years in the mornings to walk and pray and just sort of spend my morning doing that. And so the very first week that I was living in that little village, I was walking and praying, and I came across a cow standing in the middle of the road. Now, for those of you who are from the country, you might know that a cow is safe, but I'm from the city. I didn't know if a cow is safe or not. I mean, what does a cow do? Does a cow trample you? Does it rear up and hit you? Does it eat you? I mean, is this a killer cow, or is this a safe cow? I didn't know. So I was like frozen in fear, just looking at the cow, thinking, what's going to happen? I've been a missionary for a week, and I'm about to die right here in the middle of this street in this little village in Vermont. And so my whole life flashed before my eyes, and my heart raced, and I was just frozen in fear. Well, men in town, they were driving by, and of course, it only took, 15 minutes for everyone in town to know that a new reverend had moved to town. And so men in town drove by with their pickup truck, and they lowered their window, and they said, Reverend, what's wrong? And I said, it's a cow. It's a cow. It was a killer cow loose. And they would look at me with this strange look, and then they just drove away, left me there with my life in danger with this killer cow. Of course, I obviously eventually realized that milk cows are not dangerous. This particular milk cow was definitely not dangerous. I learned over the next 8 years that this cow often escaped, and I eventually learned how to take the rope and lead it back into the pasture, and it was safe. But what a culture shock, learning to live in this little village where the cows were not killer cows, but it was very different than living in the city. I had to learn a lot of different things living in that little village, because so much in that village was different than living in the city. I had to learn not to wear a tie, because in that village, only Mormons and tax collectors wore a tie. I had to learn how important it was to take a contribution to the 8th grade fundraising dinner at the little village school. I had to learn how important it was to do weddings and funerals for everybody in town, even if they weren't religious and had nothing to do with the church, because we were the only Protestant church in town. I learned all kinds of things that had to be done differently in that little village church in Vermont than in the city church that I was used to. But because I did things differently, 54 people in that village came to faith in Christ, and a little small village church was revitalized. Now, I never had to change the gospel, but I did have to change many of the methods that I used to share the gospel. In that village, when I had my encounter with what I thought was a killer cow, I had to learn the truth of 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 20 through 22. To the Jews, I became like a Jew to win Jews. To those under the law, like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, to win those who were under the law. To the weak I became weak in order to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that I may by every possible means save some. I think we have to learn in this world in which we live all the different ways that we can win someone with the gospel, whether that's killer cows or 8th grade fundraiser dinners, or whether it's doing perhaps a funeral for someone who isn't even religious. Let's learn all the ways possible, even the killer cows, to share the gospel till everyone has had a chance to hear. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want to support our work in New England, you'll find a link in the description.